The unexpected refusal. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen a gathering quite like this one. For the first time in over 2 millennia, every single member species had sent their highest representatives to witness what was being called the most significant expansion of the Council since its founding. The massive chamber, carved from a single piece of crystallized starlight, hummed with nervous energy as beings from across the galaxy took their designated positions. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the entrance to the hall, her crisp Earth defense Force uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes and elaborate ceremonial armor worn by the other delegates. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his simple black suit and checked his tablet one final time. The 2 humans had spent months preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of what they were about to witness. The chamber stretched upward for what seemed like miles, its walls covered in living murals that shifted and changed to tell the story of galactic civilization. Hundreds of different species filled the tiered seating, each group separated by subtle energy barriers that maintained optimal atmospheric conditions for their various biological needs. The air itself seemed to shimmer with translation fields, allowing every word spoken to be understood by every being present. At the center of the chamber, on a raised platform that seemed to float in defiance of gravity, sat the Council of 12. These were the most powerful beings in known space, representatives of the species that had founded the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago. Their influence stretched across 10,000 star systems, and their word was law for billions of sentient beings. Supreme Chancellor Vexera, eldest of the council members, rose from her throne-like chair. Her species, the Zephyrians, were among the first to achieve faster-than-light travel, and their natural lifespan of 5,000 years made them perfect for long-term galactic governance. Her skin had the texture of polished marble, and her 6 eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to pierce through space itself. Honored delegates, Vexera began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber without need for amplification. Today marks a new chapter in the history of our great civilization. For the first time in 800 years, we extend an invitation of full membership to a promising young species. The chamber erupted in a symphony of sounds as hundreds of different species applauded, chirped, clicked, and hummed their approval. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that every single one of these beings had once been in humanity's position, standing before the council to accept their offer of membership. Ambassador Krelin, whose insectoid species controlled the largest trade networks in the galaxy, stepped forward on his 6 legs. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's light like 1,000 tiny mirrors as he gestured toward the human delegation. The species known as humanity has demonstrated remarkable potential in the brief time since achieving interstellar flight. Their expansion rate, technological adaptation, and social cohesion mark them as natural candidates for council membership. Dr. Webb leaned closer to Sarah and whispered, "Notice how he talks about us like we're not even here, like we're specimens." In a lab, Sarah nodded slightly, her military training keeping her expression neutral even as her mind raced. Something about this entire proceeding felt wrong. The grand ceremony, the elaborate praise, the way every council member seemed to be reading from the same script, it all felt rehearsed, like a performance designed to overwhelm rather than inform. Minister Yerden, whose aquatic species lived in the deep oceans of 100 different worlds, flowed forward in his mobile water tank. His translated voice carried the sound of rushing tides as he spoke. The benefits of council membership are beyond measure. Protection from the void predators that lurk in the spaces between stars, access to trade routes that span the galaxy, technology that can transform worlds, medical advances that can extend life by centuries. The presentation continued for over an hour. Each council member spoke of different aspects of membership, painting a picture of a utopian civilization where war was unknown, poverty eliminated, and every species lived in harmony under the wise guidance of the council. Charts and holographic displays showed the prosperity of member worlds, the vast fleets that protected them, and the scientific wonders that membership had brought. But Sarah's trained. I caught details that others might have missed. The military displays showed not just protection fleets, but monitoring stations. The prosperity charts showed not just wealth, but resource quotas. The scientific wonders came with strict research limitations and approval processes. What was being presented as paradise looked more and more like a very comfortable cage. Finally, Supreme Chancellor Vexthara called for the formal presentation of the membership contract. A crystalline podium rose from the floor, and upon it materialized a document that seemed to be made of liquid light. The text shifted and flowed, automatically translating itself into every language spoken in the chamber. "The terms are generous," Vexthara announced. "Humanity will receive full protection under the Council's military umbrella. All human worlds will be integrated into the Galactic Trade Network. Human scientists will have access to the combined knowledge of 3,000 years of civilization. In return, we ask only for compliance with standard Council protocols." Dr. Webb had been studying the contract through his tablet's connection to the chamber's data systems. His face had grown progressively paler as he read, and now he looked up at Sarah with barely concealed alarm. She gave him a slight nod, and he began to speak. "Honored council members," Dr. Webb said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Before we can give our response, we need clarification on several points in this contract." A ripple of confusion passed through the assembled delegates. This was not how these ceremonies typically proceeded. Usually, the invited species would express overwhelming gratitude and immediately accept the generous offer. "Of course," Vexthara replied, though her tone suggested she found the request unusual. "What would you like?" clarified. Section 47 states that all human military vessels must be registered with Council oversight and may not leave designated patrol zones without authorization. Section 52 requires that all human colonies accept Council-appointed governors who have final authority over local law. Section 61 mandates that human population growth must be regulated to maintain optimal resource distribution. Dr. Webb's voice grew stronger as he continued. "These don't sound like the terms of membership. They sound like the terms of surrender." The chamber fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle hum of the life support systems and the distant whisper of the station's engines. Then, slowly, nervous murmurs began to spread through the assembled delegates. Ambassador Croylon's compound eyes shifted to focus entirely on the human delegation. "You misunderstand the nature of these provisions, Dr. Webb. They are not restrictions, but protections. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Young species often make decisions that endanger not only themselves, but their neighbors. The Council's guidance prevents such tragedies. And what happens if we choose not to follow this guidance?" Sarah asked, stepping forward. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded starships in battle and made life decisions in the depths of space. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Supreme Chancellor Vexthara S6 eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time since the ceremony began, She looked genuinely surprised. That question is irrelevant, she said finally. No species has ever refused council membership. No species has ever chosen to remain outside our protection. The benefits are too great, the alternatives too terrible. But what if we did? Sarah pressed. What if humanity chose to remain independent? Minister Yerden's tank bubbled with agitation. Commander Chen, you do not understand the forces at work in this galaxy. Beyond the safety of council space lurk things that would consume your entire species without a second thought. The void, hunters, ancient machine intelligences that devour entire star systems. The chaos storms that can tear apart the fabric of space itself. The rogue AI networks that turn planets into computronium. Only the Council's combined strength can protect against such threats. Sarah looked around the chamber, studying the faces of the assembled delegates. What she saw there wasn't the expression of beings who felt protected and free. It was the expression of beings who had traded their freedom for security and found themselves with neither. Dr. Webb, she said formally, please record our official response. The chamber held its breath. Every translator field, every recording device, every communication system focused on the two humans standing at the center of the greatest gathering of power in the known galaxy. Sarah Chen, commander of the Earth Defense Force, representative of humanity's 4 billion souls, looked directly at Supreme Chancellor Vexthera and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The United Earth Government thanks the Galactic Council for their generous offer of membership. We are honored by your invitation and impressed by the civilization you have built. However, after careful consideration, we must respectfully decline. You do not understand what you have done, she said, her voice carrying a threat that made the air itself seem to tremble. You have doomed your species to extinction. Without the Council's protection, you will not survive a single solar cycle. The Void Hunters will find you. The Chaos Storms will tear your worlds apart. And when your people are dying in the darkness between stars, you will remember this moment and curse your own arrogance. Sarah met her gaze without flinching. Maybe we will die. Maybe the dangers you describe are real. But we will die as free beings, not as pets in a cage. We will face the unknown on our own terms, not as subjects of a council that treats sentient species like children who cannot be trusted with their own choices. The two humans turned and walked toward the exit, leaving behind a chamber full of beings who had forgotten what it meant to be free. Behind them, the carefully constructed order of 3,000 years began to crack. Asterisk, the Council's desperate measures. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber that most beings in the galaxy didn't even know existed. Deep in the heart of the Council station, behind layers of security that could stop a fleet. The 12 most powerful beings in known space gathered in what they called the Inner Sanctum. The chamber was smaller than the Grand Assembly Hall, but somehow more oppressive. The walls were made of some dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And the only illumination came from the council members themselves. Each species had evolved different ways of producing light, and the combined glow created an eerie, shifting pattern of colors that would have been beautiful if not for the tension that filled the air. Supreme Chancellor Vexthera stood at the center of the circular table, her 6 eyes blazing with an anger that had been building for the 3 days since humanity's refusal. Around her, the other council members sat in various states of agitation, their usual calm facade cracking under the pressure of dealing with something they had never encountered before. The situation is deteriorating faster than our worst projections, announced Councillor Vexmar, whose crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. 17 species have submitted formal requests for clarification of their membership terms. The Valorian Confederation has suspended all military cooperation pending review. The Nexus Collective has recalled their trade fleets from Outer Rim territories. Ambassador Krylon's compound eyes clicked rapidly as he processed data streams from across the galaxy. The economic implications are staggering. Trade volume has dropped by 12% in the past 72 hours. 3 major trade routes have been temporarily closed due to security concerns. If this continues, we could see a complete collapse of the galactic economy within a standard year. Minister Yurdan's aquatic form swirled anxiously in his tank. It's worse than economics. The psychological impact is spreading through the younger species like a virus. There are reports of independence movements on 47 different worlds. Some are calling for complete withdrawal from council space. Vexthera slammed her fist on the table, causing the entire chamber to shake. This is what happens when we show weakness. One insignificant species refuses our offer, and suddenly every malcontent in the galaxy thinks they can do the same. We should have anticipated this, should have anticipated it, scoffed Councillor Mexhara, whose gaseous form flickered with indignation. No species has ever refused council membership. In 3,000 years, this has never happened. How could we have anticipated something that was theoretically impossible? It was impossible because we made it impossible, Vexthera replied coldly. Every previous candidate species was carefully selected and prepared. We chose beings who would be grateful for our protection, who would see the benefits of joining our civilization. We controlled the narrative, managed the presentation, ensured compliance. But the humans are different. Dr. Webb's voice echoed from the chamber's speakers. The council members froze as they realized that somehow the human delegation had infiltrated their most secure meeting. The chamber's defenses activated instantly, energy barriers snapping into place and scanner beams sweeping for intruders. But there was no one there. The humans had somehow tapped into their communication systems from light years away. How? Vexthera demanded, her voice shaking with rage. You want to know how? Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation, carrying the calm confidence of someone who held all the cards. Because while you were busy building your empire of fear and control, we were busy doing what humans do best. We were learning. We were adapting. We were preparing. The truth began to dawn on the council members. The humans hadn't just refused their offer randomly. They had planned this. They had studied the council, analyzed their methods, and prepared for this exact scenario. During the 3 months of negotiations leading up to the ceremony, Dr. Webb continued, your own communication systems were teaching us everything we needed to know. Every species you contacted, every emergency protocol you activated, every contingency plan you discussed, we were listening. Impossible, Krylon chittered. Our security systems are impenetrable. The encryption algorithms alone would take a civilization centuries to break. You're right, Sarah admitted. Your security is excellent. But it was designed to keep out known threats, species that think like you do. It wasn't designed to stop a species that approaches problems from an entirely different angle. What the Council didn't know was that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their diversity. While most species in the galaxy had evolved along similar lines, developing centralized governments and hierarchical societies, humans had maintained their chaotic, creative, unpredictable nature. They thought in ways that the Council's ordered minds couldn't anticipate. The question now, Dr. Webb continued, is what you plan to do about it. Because we know about the Void Hunters. We know about the Chaos Storms. We know about all the threats you use to keep your member species in line. And we know the truth about what they really are. The chamber fell silent. This was the Council's deepest secret, the foundation upon which their entire civilization was built. The threats they used to justify their control weren't external dangers. They were the Council's own creation. You have no proof, Vexthera said, but her voice lacked conviction, don't we? Sarah's voice carried a note of amusement. Councillor Vexmar, would you like to explain to your colleagues how the Void Hunters are actually automated? Mining platforms that you've been using to harvest resources from unprotected systems? Or would you prefer that Minister Yerden describe how the Chaos Storms are artificially generated to prevent species from exploring beyond Council space? The revelation hit the Council members like a physical blow. Their carefully constructed lies, the foundation of their power, had been completely exposed. But worse than that, they realized that if the humans knew, it was only a matter of time before everyone else knew as well. What do you want? Vexthera asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We want exactly what we said we wanted, Sarah replied. Freedom, the right to make our own choices, to explore the galaxy on our own terms, to succeed or fail based on our own decisions. But we also want something else. We want to offer that same freedom to every species in the galaxy. As if summoned by her words, new voices began to join the conversation. Representatives from dozens of different species. Beings who had been listening to the conversation and making their own decisions about their futures. The Valorian Confederation stands with humanity, announced a voice that the Council recognized. As Admiral Trender, one of their most trusted military commanders, we renounce our membership in the Galactic Council and declare our independence. The Nexus Collective agrees, added another voice. We will no longer be bound by Council law. One by one, species across the galaxy began to declare their independence. The carefully constructed order of 3,000 years was crumbling in real time, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it. This is madness, Vex shouted. Without the Council's protection, you will destroy each other. There will be wars, chaos, suffering on a scale not seen since the ancient times. Maybe, Sarah admitted. But there will also be growth, discovery, and the chance to become something better than what we are. You offered us safety in exchange. For our freedom, we choose the uncertainty of freedom over the certainty of captivity. The emergency session continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Galactic Council, which had ruled over much of the galaxy for 3 millennia, was facing its first true crisis. Species after species announced their intention to leave Council space, to forge their own paths among the stars. In the end, Supreme Chancellor Vexthera found herself staring at empty chairs as most of the Council members returned to their homeworlds to deal with the growing independence movements. The great civilization they had built was coming apart, and it was all because one species had dared to say a single word that had not been heard in Council chambers for 3,000 years. No, as the session finally ended, and the lights dimmed. In the inner sanctum, Vexthera was left alone with a single, terrible realization. The humans had done more than refuse their offer. They had shown the galaxy that the Council's power was not absolute, that their protection was not necessary, and that freedom was still possible. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of free species was about to begin. And it was. All because humanity had chosen to walk away from the largest, most powerful civilization in the galaxy, with nothing but their courage and their determination to remain free in the depths of space. Human ships were already moving toward the unknown, regions beyond council space. They carried with them not just the hopes of their own species, but the dreams of every being who had ever wondered what lay beyond the boundaries of their controlled existence. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place, but it was also about to become a much more interesting one. Asterisk.